Welcome to 10, the Tenant Experience Network. I'm your host, David Abrams. In this episode, we are connecting with Glenn Felson, with 20 years of experience, having held executive roles in sales and operation for the likes of Breather and Castle Systems, and now author of PropTech and the Future of Real Estate, and a board member at Urban Immersive. In this episode, we will learn about Glenn's journey to his current endeavors, where he combines his experience from working in residential brokerage with his learning from the building access and flex space industries. We will tap into his thinking around finding really smart people who believed in him as one of his keys to success. Hear about his ability to pick up the phone and make things happen, and gain insight into why he thinks we have yet to see a winner in the tenant experience space declared. We're excited to be sharing this podcast with you, so be sure to follow 10 so you never miss an episode of the Tenant Experience Network. And now I'd like to welcome Glenn to the show. Really glad you could be with us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to our conversation. Let's start with your journey in commercial real estate, spanning now 20 years. I don't want to date you. You've held executive roles in sales and operations for the likes of Breather, Castle. You're now author of PropTech and the Future of Real Estate, and a board member at Urban Immersive. How did you get started? Walk me through that. Just share a little bit about that journey.
Absolutely. So I started right out of college at a company called Realogy, Fortune 500. They are the owner of Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA, Better Homes and Gardens, and Sotheby's. So I started entry level. I knew nothing about real estate, and I was in contract administration. I loved everything about it, but I knew I didn't want to be entry level for that long. So I really delved in. I studied everything I could about the company, and was very fortunate that I had really good mentors and leaders there. So a year into my role there, they promoted me to a management position. And then my next step, a year later, they moved me into sales. So I was a franchise sales director for Coldwell Banker. And when I stepped into sales, it just clicked. I knew that that's what I love to do. Where other people hated to make cold calls, I loved it. I loved that instant gratification of getting somebody on the phone and closing them. So very lucky that I had a great territory, and that first year, I think I doubled my quota, and they moved me up to ARVP. So I was managing a franchise sales team of nine sales directors, 3 for Coldwell Banker, 3 for ERA, and 3 for Century 21. And we just had a great year. We had a lot of fun, and they promoted me to vice president of franchise sales. So I spent 6 years there. And then Apollo came in and acquired them with a private equity buyout. And it went from the most fun place I've ever worked to fairly toxic, just because every dollar went to debt service. Right. So I picked up the phone and I called a gentleman named Bill Ravis, who owns William Ravis Real Estate, Mortgage, and Insurance. And I pitched him on starting a franchise division. I told him I know everything that franchisees love from my time at Realogy. I know everything that they hate, and I thought that together we could build something really special. He was hesitant because he didn't know me. I was just some kid that called him on the phone, but credit to him, he rolled the dice and he brought me on board. And that first year, we sold about 35 of those franchises, and really just blew it out. And then he moved me to a more senior role where I was overseeing brokerage offices. I was doing a lot of recruiting, and then he put me in what was probably the most exciting part of my career, where I would go into markets that nobody ever heard of us before. We didn't have an office, we didn't have name recognition, and my job was to build startup offices from the ground up. And I would meet with top agents from all the competitive offices, build really deep relationships with them, and I'd get them to resign from where they were, and we'd move them all over in one foul swoop to our team. We'd get a temporary office, a permanent office, and we would go from no market share to leading market share overnight. And we did that time and time again and opened up dozens and dozens of offices. And we grew while I was there from about $5 billion in sales to a little bit over $10 billion worth of sales. And it was stressful and it was exciting. And I really just learned everything about how agents think, how they make decisions, how to influence their decisions, and how to help them grow their business. I then got recruited to join a company called Castle Systems as their president. And I knew nothing about that industry. Castle Systems sold access control, CCTV, and visitor management into Class A/B multi-tenant commercial buildings. And the leaders of that company were absolutely fantastic, super innovative, and really gave me the leeway to grow that business. It was my first entry into commercial, and it is a very different animal than residential, but really, really exciting. And that's where I learned about tenant amenity apps. That's where I learned about SaaS, and I spent 4 years there. And then I heard about this company, Breather.
Right.
And Breather was at a very pivotal time in their evolution. They had made a change across the top from an executive team, and I really wanted to be in the flexible space. So just like I picked up the phone and I called Bill Ravis, I called the new CEO, Brian Murphy of Breather, and I told him that I wanted to join the team. He also looked at me like I had 10 heads because he had never met me before, but we spent some time together. He believed in me. He brought me on the team, and the rest is history.
Wow, I love it. That's great. So you very entrepreneurial, really in a sense. And if you don't get recruited, you go and sell yourself.
I do. I always that's been my MO, is to go out and try to make things happen and really find what I'm passionate about and take some chances. For every call that I've called into a CEO to try to sell myself, there's 50 other calls that I made where they didn't take the call.
Okay. So we're only hearing about the successful ones.
You're only hearing the success.
All right. I love it. So why do you think you were so uniquely suited to this opportunity? What helped you along the way to become successful? You mentioned a mentor, but any skills, mentors, colleagues, books, tricks of the trade?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I think I have a really unique perspective on the industry because I've been in franchising, residential, commercial, flex, SaaS. So I've seen the industry from all different sides. I've been a buyer of SaaS, a seller of SaaS. So I really understand a lot of different unique perspectives. But I owe a lot of of my success to people that believed in me along the way. My first manager when I joined Realogy, his name is Mike Meadler. He believed in me as a kid out of college, and he's now the president and CEO of Century 21. So I got to learn a lot from him. Bill Ravis believed in me and gave me great mentorship. And then when I joined Castle, Piyush Soda and Mark Ein, who are the two owners of that company, the smartest people I've ever met, and they literally are. And the amount of knowledge that I was able to get from them is just incredibly valuable. So I owe most of my success to other people just really believing in me.
That's amazing. It's great to have a journey where you can track along the way the people that have had such impact on your life.
It is. And the other thing is that I've also learned a lot from folks that have worked for me. My philosophy has always been to hire people that are smarter than me. I'm not that smart, so it's not that difficult to do. But I had a gentleman that worked for me at Breather. His name's Henry Mizell, and he taught me the importance of RevOps when it comes to growing a business. And for anyone that's listening, that's building a sales team, what I would tell you is to invest heavily into a really, really strong RevOps leader. The value that can bring to a company is hard to it's hard to put into words. And so I've learned from people that I've worked for. I've learned from people that have worked for me. And I really just try to spend as much time learning as much as I can from everybody.
I love it. Well, I may tap into that intellect, that experience offline as HILO continues to scale. And we're now bringing our first building online in New York City and looking to improve our own sales operation. I might tap into that expertise you spoke of.
Anytime. I've checked out your product and it's amazing. I don't think you need that much help. It's you guys have really built something special.
Thank you. Thank you. So listen, let's agree that living through a pandemic is absolutely horrible. Okay. Granted, there are going to be some amazing outcomes as a result, but the pandemic itself is not good. It's terrible. But we believe we're at a point in time now knowing that it's not going to end anytime soon, that we need to do better, be better, and build something better, even in this time. So to that end, being the big thinker that you are, if I was to give you an extra $100,000 in budget right now, what would you do with it? How would you spend it and why?
Yeah, so at Urban Immersive, they have built what I believe is the best product in 3D tours. And to tell you a little bit about how it works is, I think everyone has seen 3D tours before, but they built a proprietary platform that not only creates it with any camera, so they're camera agnostic, but they've embedded video conferencing into the tour so that you can literally tour somebody through a property when you're both in two different locations. And unlike most companies that fake it till they make it and really start selling a product till it's fully baked, Urban Immersive has spent so much time building a product and getting it perfect. And while they've have tremendous amount of sales, the reason most people haven't heard of them is because they've really been working on their product and getting it perfect. So if I had an extra $100,000 right now, I would spend it all in sales and marketing. The product is absolutely 100% ready to go. It's been deployed, but we need to get the word out about this product. And the first time I saw it, I was drooling. I had never seen anything like it. And over the past couple of weeks since I've been on their board, I've been demoing it for leaders in residential, commercial, flex, and everybody that sees it is blown away by it. We just need to invest now in sales and marketing. And I would take that $100,000 and put every penny into it.
All right. Well, I'd love to, again, offline learn more about that. We've been looking at some other 3D imaging platforms from the perspective of, HILO is kind of unique in the marketplace, that we're not just selling building apps and, providing a siloed approach, but really creating more of a community neighborhood network. And to that end, we're looking at some of these platforms to help bring to life the neighboring community as well, not just the building. So definitely we can connect and explore that opportunity further.
Fantastic.
So, there's a lot that we don't know. In spring last year, we all thought we'd be back to work in July. In July, we were hoping in the fall. I think in the fall, we all began to take a more realistic view and recognize that it was going to be sometime in 2021, but not necessarily pinpointing a date and time. And now we're already thinking about 2022. So we know it's going to be a slow road back. We know that the theme of flexibility is going to be, it's going to stay with us. It's probably something that is going to continue to be very important in terms of how people view commercial real estate, how people view the notion of working from everywhere. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on sort of all of that.
Yeah, so it's a great point. The world has changed forever. And I was not a person that liked to work out of my house. I always wanted to be in an office. And for the first month into the pandemic, I kicked and screamed about not being able to leave the house. And over time, I started to get used to it. And my commute into the city every day was 2 hours each way. So as I started working from home, I started to realize that I can be really productive, but I also want to be in an office sometimes. So in my mind, the future is a hybrid approach. People want to work in the office. They want to work at home. They want to work in offices that are closer to their home. And I believe that the company that really nails the tenant experience correctly is the one that is able to accommodate a flexible schedule. I don't want to have to work with 15 different landlords because I'm going to work in different locations. I want to be able to use one platform to be able to work where I want to work and when I want to work. 5 years ago, if I told my boss that I wanted to work where I wanted to work and when, I would have been fired.
Right.
But the leverage has moved over to the employees. So really making sure that you're able to work in flexible schedule, flexible locations is key. But you hit on a really important point, and that's community. And community is one of the things that I miss the most about being in the office, the ability to network with the folks that are in my office, in the building, in the local community. So a lot of tenant amenity apps I believe, really don't focus on community, and that's where they get it wrong. You need to be able to tie flexibility and community into the same platform. And that's where you're really hitting it out of the park. And I think your focus on community is really, really important. And
Yeah, thank you. You're right. And we're really focused on, where you work, where you live, and everywhere in between. And I think that is going to be our new reality. And I agree with you when I have found working from home to be certainly more productive at times. My commute was not nearly as long. But now I miss that commute. I miss the interaction, the busyness, the craziness of being in and around people during that transition from home to work. And I do miss, obviously, the collaboration, the interaction, those moments of spontaneity and creativity that naturally happen that are very hard to manufacture through a Zoom call. So I can definitely see myself and my team coming back to a workplace, but also being far more flexible and allowing people to work, when and where it makes sense. And I think that's going to be a really positive outcome.
I agree 100%. I think Flex was really starting to gain popularity in the US and Canada, but COVID has absolutely accelerated that trend. And I don't believe we're going to go back to 15-year leases and large headquarter offices.
Right. Or those long-term leases will be for, smaller footprints of space and they've been reimagined to recognize that it's for when people need to come together versus somebody that needs to sit in an office and head down and do work, which they can do at home or at the deck of the cottage.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
This episode of 10, the Tenant Experience Network, is proudly brought to you by HILO. HILO is a software solution used by building operators to attract tenants, boost revenues, and streamline operations by creating connected, engaged, and informed building communities. Building operators need to connect their tenants now more than ever before, recognizing that people will be working from everywhere, including the home, forever. Unlike apps that silo one building, the HILO Tenant Experience Network is the only solution that connects people to their building community, network, and city where they work, live, or visit. To learn more about HILO, visit hiloapp.com.
We're back with Glenn Felson, CRE industry expert and author. Thanks so much for being with us again today.
My pleasure.
So the commercial real estate industry is moving faster and faster towards recognizing that their business is really not about building ownership. Some might argue it's moving slow, but I think we're starting to pick up speed. Building operators are starting to recognize that it is really about creating the best customer experience. It is about their people. It is about their tenants or their residents. They are their customers. They are the most important. So any thinking around how we will define and deliver the best tenant experience in 2021?
It's going to be about technology. And in order to provide a tenant experience on a distributed workforce, you're going to need a strong technology platform. In my mind, it's not a mix of 15 different platforms that exist today. Right now, a tenant needs one app for access, they need one app for visitor management, they need one for experience and community, and nobody wants to log into 15 different apps in order to enter their building and to do what they need to do. So in my mind, the perfect tenant experience app is one pane of glass that integrates with all of the different best-in-class solutions that are out there. A winner has not been crowned in this space, but if I was—
Not yet.
I was gonna say, if I'm a betting man, I've got money on you.
All right. Well, I agree with you. I do think, we like to say that no customer wants 5 apps, 3 portals, and 2 websites. So we've got to think more about the customer and less about the technology. In fact, technology not for the sake of technology, but what is the outcome we're trying to achieve? And I think that's where we've really focused, is really trying to understand the end user, the customer, and build a platform that they're going to love, and then figure out, okay, what do they need? So different approach.
I think it's the right approach.
All right. So can you share any details about anything new that you're working on, or a challenge that you're sort of knee deep in thinking about, particularly in light of world circumstances, that you think our listeners might find interesting?
Yeah. So I am very close to making a move from to a new role, and it's been really an interesting process interviewing remotely all these different positions, and what's changed is that all of the positions that I've always interviewed for have been in New York. Now, due to COVID, geographic boundaries have basically fallen off. And the companies that I'm meeting with are in San Francisco, they're in Texas, they're in New York, they're in the UK.
Maybe Toronto. Maybe Toronto.
I would love nothing more than that. So it's been a really interesting process to interview and to meet with people. All these interviews taking place over Zoom, me never meeting any of these people face to face, and really trying to understand what the culture is like in that organization and trying to figure it out over Zoom has been a really unique process. It's been really interesting, but it also creates a level of anxiety that you just want to make sure you're making the right decision. For me, culture is the most important piece of any company, and that's really what I've struggled to get an understanding of with a company without physically being in their office and meeting people face to face.
Right. So just now, I'm just curious. Any of the opportunities you're looking at were they ones that you actually just called someone up and said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about an opportunity"?
Every one of them.
Every one of them.
Yeah,
I love it.
every one of them. Yeah, it's been. There's something that I'm looking for, a very specific set of requirements that I'm looking for in a company. And from my end, I researched the company, researched the industry, and then reached out. And luckily, people took the calls. So now it just comes down to making a decision. And so within the next few days, I'll have something to announce.
All right, exciting. I look forward to that. Okay, our closing speed round. All right. We're going to ask you a series of questions looking for sort of your top of mind answer. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
To predict the future.
Okay. Yeah, you and me both. What city or country would you like to travel to first, when you can, and why?
So I have never been to the UK, and I've managed teams in the UK. I've on phone calls all day with people in the UK, and I've never been there. So that is the first trip I'm taking.
Okay, sounds good. When you are not working, what are you doing?
I'm playing with my kids. We play football in the house, which drives my wife insane. But the boys love it, and that's what we do when I'm not working.
Okay. Number one thing you miss about the workplace? I know it's not the commute, but what else?
I honestly miss being with my coworkers. To me, you just can't duplicate that over Zoom.
Right. Agreed. Your favorite recent TV or streaming movie or series?
Whatever my wife is watching.
Wow. All right. So you're just sitting by, watching by, and following along.
I am, and I'm barely paying attention, and then I stop and ask her questions throughout the entire show and drive her bananas.
All right. Listen, Glenn, it was great to get to know you. Great opportunity to connect. I look forward to continuing the conversation. I look forward to learning more about your next endeavors. And I'm sure it's going to be an incredible journey for you. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to following your company and helping out in any way I can.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Take care.
Yeah.
I want to thank Glenn Felson for joining me on today's episode of 10 and for sharing his journey from early beginnings in commercial real estate to now exploring new opportunities without geographic boundaries. Great learning for all our listeners and an opportunity to gain insights into what it takes to become an innovation leader. Please be sure to follow 10 for future discussions with leading professionals and industry experts who all have something to say about the impact of technology on tenant experience in the built world. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on a future episode, please reach out to me directly at david@hiloapp.com. And until our next episode, I wish you all continued success in building community where you work and live. Thank you.